Hey YNR fans! Waving hand, welcome to YNR Trends, your go-to spot for the juiciest Young and the Restless updates, shocking spoilers, and all the drama you can't stop talking about. From surprise returns to scandalous twists, we break it all down for you, every day. So grab your coffee, hit that subscribe button, and let's dive right into Genoa City's hottest gossip. According to teasers on The Young and the Restless, Kane Ashby might have one chance to win Lily Winters back. Could a significant turn of events be the solution to Kane's issues regarding the reunion he is looking for? Although he hasn't given Lily any compelling reasons to trust him again, Kane is fervently interested in a future with her. Given all of the ways Kane has harmed her in the past and the lies he has said, it is simple to understand why Lily is cautious. Kane's choice to get back in touch with Colin Atkinson prior to his passing also did not sit well with Lily. It didn't help Kane either because of Aristotle Dumas's deceit or the anarchy that occurred in Nice. Kane isn't prepared to give up on writing his next chapter with Lily, though. Kane is hopeful that he might be able to wear Lily down and persuade her to give him another opportunity in spite of her repeated rejections. After he persuades Maddie Ashby and Charlie Ashby to forgive him as well, Kane would adore nothing more than to get back together romantically with Lily and start a new family with the twins. This leads us to the twist that could enable Kane fulfill his personal ambitions, which he has acknowledged are more significant to him than his career objectives. YNR might eventually allow Kane to land in a dangerous situation. A story-related twist that could endanger Kane's life is possible. Kane might, for instance, be in a vehicle accident or another kind of mishap. There is also a chance that Kane will be severely hurt by an enigmatic foe. Lily wants something to help her break down the barriers she has put up around Kane. That might be aided by nearly losing Kane forever, which would also result in some amazing hospital bedside sequences. In a scenario like that, we could definitely picture Lily pleading with a comatose Kane to open his eyes. With tears in her eyes, Lily can give Kane a reunion in exchange for him simply returning to her. This seems like the kind of situation that may jolt Lily up to the fact that she still loves her ex-husband and shake her to her very core. Put another way, a near-death incident that demonstrates to Lily how much she stands to lose could be the solution to Kane's reunion issues. According to previews on The Young and the Restless, as their plot develops, Lily will receive updates on more startling Kane news. In his dimly lit apartment, Kane Ashby sat by himself, gazing at the empty glass in his fingers as though it may provide some sort of solution to the concerns that had been bothering him for months. He was reminded of how far he had fallen from the life he had once led by the stillness, which weighed heavily on him. Every day, he thought about Lily, her laugh, her smile, and the way she could light up any space. He reflected on the family they had created together, the happy times that now seemed like memories of a previous existence. More than anything, though, he reflected on his own transgressions, the betrayals that had destroyed her trust, and the harsh fact that she had moved on while he was still trapped in the ruins of his own decisions. Kane was eaten by regret rather than merely bothered by it. He convinced himself it was ended for weeks. Perhaps he was no longer a part of Lily's happiness, which she deserved. The thought of her being forever out of his grasp, however, tore at him like an open sore no matter how hard he tried to let go. He had made every effort, including pledges he vowed to keep this time, big gestures, and apologies. Words had lost their power, and Lily had heard it all before, so it didn't matter. Kane knew he couldn't destroy her heart the way he used to because she had put up barriers around it. But then he had an idea in the midst of his worst night. One possibility. One avenue remains untapped. A daring and surprising turn of events that could be the only way to win her back. The thought didn't suddenly strike him, rather, it steadily, almost whisperingly, infiltrated his thoughts until it wouldn't go away. What if he showed her something she couldn't ignore instead of attempting to prove himself? Lily wanted to see that he was capable of genuine transformation, not just excuses. and Kane understood that the only way to accomplish that was not to pursue her, but to assume a position that would serve as a reminder to her of his true self, a man who stood up for his family, who guarded those he loved, and who was able to overcome his worst self when it counted most. Lily had to visit that man once more. Not the shattered, hopeless one who sat with a glass in his hand in an apartment. Almost by accident, the opportunity came up. As usual, Genoa City was a hive of intrigue and plots, but Kane began to hear rumors of a threat involving Lily, something connected to her career, the business she was managing, and the nefarious individuals who sought to use it for their own ends. Kane was familiar enough with deception and treachery to spot the warning flags. He understood that Lily might not even notice until it was too late. That was the end of it. The opening was that. She may remember why she once loved Kane if he could protect her, not just be there for her, but actually shelter her from something unexpected. He had not felt a fire in years, but the thought of it rekindled it. He began contacting people, looking through documents, and reconstructing previous relationships. He was going to demonstrate his commitment to change by acting on it rather than imposing himself on Lily's life with empty promises. Additionally, he would wait to tell her until she had seen the outcomes for herself. It was dangerous because she would believe he was interfering or, worse, manipulating if she learned too soon. However, she could finally see that his love for her wasn't self-serving this time if he could covertly expose the plot that threatened her and shield her without claiming credit. It had nothing to do with his desires. It has to do with her needs. But the fear persisted. What if he didn't succeed? Even if he rescued Lily from the impending storm, what if she never forgives him? Kane was aware that redemption was not assured, so he wasn't naive. However, he was also aware that this was his only remaining opportunity, and he couldn't let it pass him by. Instead of living his entire life wondering if this was the turn of events that would have reunited her with him, he would rather attempt and fail. Not understanding how perilous the road ahead would become or how much it would test both his willpower and his emotions, Kane set his plan in motion with determination burning through the remorse. The story of Kane and Lily from the ultimatum, marry or move on, is a particularly moving example of the complex and frequently agonizing dance of reconciliation, especially in the wake of infidelity. This story has enthralled audiences for generations in the unique, sun-drenched world of Tuscany. Kane's treachery, which drastically changed the course of their shared history and the trust that underpinned it, destroyed their relationship, which had once been a stronghold of stability and intense, familial love. Lily's subsequent departure was the essential, self-preserving decision of a person whose core had been broken, not a ploy in a romantic game. A complex architectural project of rebuilding from the ground up, the question of whether Kane could ever win her back is not one that can be answered with grand gestures or eloquent apologies. The elusive twist, the answer, is not a single action but rather a deep and ongoing internal revolution within Kane himself. The only way he could ever lead Lily back to him is by fully and truly living that shift, making it an unquestionable truth, a new reality she may choose to believe in, rather than by persuading her of his transformation. One must first completely comprehend the nature of the hurt inflicted in order to comprehend the scope of this undertaking. Betrayal is a trauma that affects people on many levels, particularly when it comes to emotional and sexual relationships. It is a violent rewriting of common reality, not just the breach of a commitment. Knowing that Kane was leading a double life casts doubt on Lily's memories and any apparent joy she may have experienced during the betrayal. Their relationship's foundation of trust turned out to be false, and when it broke down, the whole thing fell apart. As a result, her mourning is complex, including the loss of the relationship itself, the future they had planned, and, perhaps most painfully, the loss of her own past, which must now be re-examined through a prism of suffering and deceit. It would be disastrous if Kane tried to downplay this, to paint it as a mistake or a brief error in judgment. It would reveal a basic inability to appreciate the extent of the destruction he wrought. Ironically, the first step in getting her back is for him to completely understand that he might never get her back and that his quest for improvement is for his own benefit rather than just a means to an end. This is where the idea of the twist originates. A sequence of spectacular, outward acts, such as a lavish apologies, a public profession of love, or a commitment that is set in stone, comprise the predictable path, the one reality television frequently instills in us. These are the persuasion tools. Persuasion, however, is insultingly inadequate for a wound this profound. Lily needs to be protected, she doesn't need to be convinced. She must see proof of a change so real that it seems the man who deceived her is no longer there. Thus, the twist is a state of being rather than an action. It follows Cain's path from one of ego and external validation, likely a factor in his adultery, to one of inner strength, self-awareness, and emotional maturity. Radical responsibility is the first and most important pillar of revolutionary change. This goes far beyond just saying I'm sorry. Cain must conduct a difficult and uncompromising forensic examination of his own personality in order to achieve true, radical accountability. He needs to ask himself why he did it, not what he did, and give a brutally honest response. Why did he feel the need to defend the betrayal to himself? Was it a long-standing insecurity that looked for approval from others outside of the relationship? Was self-sabotage a result of a fear of intimacy or an unwillingness to express unfulfilled needs? This is about uncovering the underlying issues, not about making excuses. He must then express this realization to Lily, not as an explanation, but as proof that he has actually examined himself in the mirror and is unhappy with what he sees. Without any semblance of deflecting, without blaming stress, drink, or the experiment's temptations, he must take full responsibility for his acts and their results. He must say simply and plainly, my character, my decisions, and my serious inability to honor you and our family were the problems, not the circumstances. I'm striving daily to develop into a man who would never have to make that decision again. Consistent and observable improvement is the second pillar that naturally results from this self-examination process. Words are useless without behavioral evidence, regardless of how brilliant they are. Lily will, understandably, be keeping a close eye on everything he does. Any inconsistency between his stated principles and his behavior will be discovered and will negate any early advancement. He needs to be consistent in all facets of his life. It entails acting honorably toward his friends, family, and business partners. It entails treating women with dignity in all of his dealings, not only with her. It entails creating a happy and complete existence for himself, demonstrating that he is a complete person who can support himself rather than a half-person looking for fulfillment in a relationship. This may entail him diligently seeking treatment as a real instrument for development rather than as a talking point. It could entail him developing fresh, healthful interests and pastimes that boost his internal self-esteem. He needs to develop into a man of substance, whose word is his promise, whose deeds reflect his principles, and whose main objective is his own moral growth, regardless of the benefit. Additionally, this new Cain needs to grow in empathy, particularly in the area of sitting with Lily's suffering without turning it into a personal one. One of the hardest things for a betrayer to learn is probably this. His natural tendency may be to get defensive, to re-explain himself, or to attempt to fix her grief in order to lessen his own emotions of shame and guilt when she expresses her anger, despair, or mistrust. He must do the opposite in order to fulfill the twist. He needs to develop active listening skills and make room for her sorrow. Responding with phrases like I understand why you feel that way, your anger is completely justified, or it makes sense that you don't trust me, he must unconditionally affirm her feelings and avoid the temptation to hasten the process. Trauma recovery is not linear, there will be both wonderful and heartbreakingly awful days. It would be a powerful monument to his growth if he could maintain his composure, patience, and presence through these storms, recognize her sorrow as a direct result of his actions, and provide unflinching support without asking for forgiveness. It would demonstrate that he is at last putting her emotional needs ahead of his own wish to be forgiven. In this situation, patience ceases to be a passive waiting game and instead becomes an active virtue. Cain needs to give up all deadlines and expectations. He cannot function under the secret agreement that I will get Lily, back if I do X for Y amount of time. This way of thinking is still essentially self-serving. He must undergo an unconditional metamorphosis. First and foremost, he has to improve himself and his daughter. Reconciliation with Lily is a gift if it results from it, but it cannot be the only goal. The ultimate twist is that he should quit attempting to get Lily back and instead focus on regaining his own integrity. He transforms himself into a secure individual by concentrating solely on his own moral and emotional healing. He changes from being a cause of harm and peril to having the capacity to bring stability and trust. Lily would sense this change of energy intuitively. Because he is developing his own internal validation system, she would see a man who is no longer in dire need of her approval. In addition to being extremely appealing, this is safe. Their daughter's role adds yet another deep level of motive and intricacy. The child's presence raises the stakes and emphasizes the need for Cain to change, even if she should never be used as leverage or as the main driver of reconciliation. As a father, it is his responsibility to set an example of honesty, decency, and positive interpersonal dynamics for his daughter. Regardless of the romantic outcome, he is carrying out that father role by starting this path of true self-improvement. For Lily, it shows that he is taking his role as a parent very seriously and that he is aware of the legacy he is leaving for his child. One could gradually start to regain some respect and confidence in his character by witnessing him develop into a truly excellent father, one who is patient, present, and principled. It demonstrates a dedication to their family that goes beyond a romantic partnership. It is altruistic and based on responsibility and love. In the end, the road back is a treacherous bridge spanning a gap of betrayed trust rather than a straight path. Every plank of that bridge represents a consistent deed, a fulfilled commitment, or an instance of respect that has been gained. Cain must construct this bridge gradually and with unending care, and let Lily determine whether and when she is ready to step onto it. He cannot just run across it. He will make mistakes, and how he handles them will be just as significant as the impressive displays. The real test of his new persona will be how he responds to a failure moment, a thought that goes back in time, or a trigger from the past. Therefore, the answer is a twist in the soul rather than a story twist. It is the internal alchemy that transforms a boyish lack of responsibility into adult, unflinching integrity, selfishness into empathy, and remorse into wisdom. It is Cain's transformation from a man who looked outside himself for answers to his inner issues to a man who confronts his own darkness and emerges from the battle a stronger, more genuine version of himself. Regaining Lily's trust requires more than a shrewd argument or a spectacular conclusion. It requires him to transform again into a man whose very being exudes security and atonement. Off camera, in the decisions he takes each day when no one is seeing, is a silent, taxing, and intensely personal revolution. The blossoming of a new truth, that the guy who harmed her is no longer there and has been replaced by someone she may one day come to believe in again, would win Lily's heart, broken but perceptive, rather than a flash of insight. Cain's ability to do a single flawless move is not the question, rather, it is whether he has the strength and bravery to go through the protracted, agonizing, but ultimately freeing process of becoming that man.